Megamind. One of my favorite movies, but unfortunately one of DreamWorks' lowest grossing CG films. A shame, considering this movie is a masterwork at subverting and also following the classic Hollywood cinema. Quick plot summary for those who haven't seen this masterpiece, and spoiler warning too, I guess. Megamind is about an evil genius and his rivalry with Metro Man, Metropolis's assigned superhero. And when Megamind is successful in defeating Metro Man, he discovers that life is boring without a purpose, so he begins to create his own superhero out of an incel named Hal. But the power goes to Hal's mind and turns evil, where he becomes the true villain of the story. In the exact definition of classic Hollywood cinema, it always begins with the hero, or protagonist. In this case, our protagonist is the villain of the story. It poses the question of, what if the villain won? What would happen? Even with Megamind being the villain, he is still our lens in which we see the world, so he is technically our protagonist. The film still has the moral message, couple formation, and has a resolution, where Megamind becomes a superhero after all and is beloved by the town. It stretches the true meaning of classic Hollywood cinema. Instead of starting with a good guy, we start with a bad guy, who becomes a good guy. It also begins in media res. We see Megamind at his lowest, plummeting towards the ground thousands of miles in the air. A common trope in movies, especially action movies, to keep the audience wondering how our protagonist got in this situation. Jumping into genre, we can clearly tell this is a superhero film, which also means it's probably an action film with bits of comedy. But it's also a spoof of the superhero film. After the shot of Megamind falling, it cuts back to the beginning of his life. He's on a planet that's being destroyed, and his parents put him in a space pod and send him off. His father speaks one last parting message.
Is your pinky? You are destined for...
I didn't quite hear that last part.
It is very common for A, a protagonist of a superhero to be from a foreign planet, B, have dead parents, and C, have the parent give a heartfelt speech to their child before they die. The joke of Megamind's father's words getting cut off is funny, but also poses a moral question. What is Megamind destined for? Evil? Good? Neither? His father being cut off allows Megamind to make the choice, rather than his dead father inspiring his choices, which makes Megamind's actions more impactful. Alongside that, while being sent to Earth, we see baby Metro Man, who is sent to a rich family where he is spoiled and loved. Megamind lands in prison, where he is taught to steal, cheat, and lie. It raises the point of how one's living conditions can affect you, and how others view and treat you. Metro Man is loved by his peers and does well in school, while Megamind is disliked and therefore begins to act out and be bad. He decides to be bad because he knew that was all the world was going to see. Besides the beginning, the film uses continuity editing throughout, from Megamind's childhood to where we see him first falling from the sky. This helps the audience feel connected to Megamind and truly understand him. If we didn't see his childhood or his home life, we wouldn't sympathize with him as much. Because yes, he is the bad guy, but he isn't a bad guy. We only see a flashback when we see Metro Man is still alive and in hiding. We see his journey through town as he questions his true purpose, a mirror of Megamind's story. He questions if he's meant to be a superhero, because he's just believed that was his duty, or because everyone expected him to be one. Here we see the use of realism in Megamind. In Concepts in Film Theory, Dudley Andrews says, film theory today consists primarily in thinking through, elaborating, and critiquing the key metaphors by which we understand. And realism in the cinema is driven by a desire to make the audience ignore the process of signification and to grasp directly the film's plot or intrigue. For most film viewers, the plot is precisely and fully what a film represents. Sure, this is a goofy movie about a blue spaceman, but the way he is characterized is meant to connect with people. The constant theme of how your upbringing can affect you, and how you aren't what people tell you who you are, works perfectly in demonstrating realism. Megamind becoming a supervillain symbolizes those who took the wrong path simply because they were told to. Or even Metro Man, who is forced into a line of work he isn't passionate about because he's expected to. It's easy for us to believe these two chose these paths, as we watch them grow up and saw their homes life. We also see an interesting use of the male gaze and feminism. Roxanne Ritchie, a reporter and the love interest, is commonly seen as the classic damsel in distress. But we see she is never clearly in distress, and she doesn't have a romantic relationship with Metro Man, like we commonly see in superhero in the genre. She's just a regular woman who happened to get caught up in the superhero, villain, and BS. Commonly in superhero films, the damsel is shown to be beautiful, elegant, weak, and easily frightened. Roxanne, while having a visually appealing character design, is not introduced to be some incredibly beautiful woman. The main characters never stop to flirt or stare at her. They usually respect her. Meanwhile, the real villain, Hal, has the classic Hollywood view of her. He sees her as a weak and beautiful woman with a simple mind. He thinks that if he saves her, she will fall in love with him and be happy. The juxtaposition of the main character's view on Roxanne and Hal's view on Roxanne are meant to call back to the Hollywood film trope of the hero always gets the girl. Finally, the film's theme has a strong tie to psychology. Human behavior and experience play a heavy role in Megamind's life. As you already know, we see how his treatment affects his goals in life and how he became a villain. And then after we see the confrontation with Metro Man, the question, "Are you what people say you are?" is posed. Brittany Coach says in his article, Interpreting Cinematic Elements, Shema's about characters provide a mental framework that allows an audience to characterize characters by their actions, personalities, and motivations. To say Megamind is a relatable character is an understatement. He is a deeply flawed person who was hurt when he was a child. Many can see that and sympathize and relate to that. After deeply analyzing this film, I have so much more love for it than I did before. As a child, I simply assumed this film was just goofy and asked the question, what if the villain won? But now as an adult, I can see it asks many questions and includes many themes. My favorite being, you are not who everyone says you are. You create your own destiny. Thank you.